My name is Jacob, and for the past 20 years, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Lisa and I met in college, two young kids with big dreams and even bigger hearts. She was the kind of woman who lit up a room just by walking into it, confident, intelligent, and effortlessly beautiful. I was the quiet, steady type, the guy who preferred books to parties and found comfort in routine. Somehow, we balanced each other out. She brought excitement into my life, and I gave her the stability she craved. We got married right after graduation, and for years, it felt like we were unstoppable. We built a life together, a house in the suburbs, two kids, a dog, and a minivan. We had our share of struggles, of course, financial stress, health scares, and the occasional argument, but we always came out stronger on the other side. Or so I thought. The first sign that something was off came about 6 months ago. Lisa started working late. At first, it was just an hour or two here and there, but soon it became a regular thing. She'd come home exhausted, barely saying a word before collapsing into bed. When I asked her about it, she'd brush me off with a vague excuse about a big project at work. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Lisa had always been a hard worker, and her job as a marketing executive was demanding. But then the excuses started piling up. She'd go out with friends I'd never met, and her phone was always face down, as if she was hiding something. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, this was Lisa, the woman who'd stood by me through thick and thin. She wouldn't betray me, would she? The turning point came one Friday evening. Lisa told me she was going to a work retreat for the weekend. She packed a small suitcase, kissed me on the cheek, and left without a second glance. Something about the way she avoided eye contact made my stomach churn. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. That night, as I sat alone in our living room, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I decided to follow her. I grabbed my keys, got in the car, and drove to the hotel where she said the retreat was being held. When I arrived, I parked a few spaces away and waited. About an hour later, I saw her walking through the lobby, but she wasn't alone. A man was with her, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. My heart stopped. I recognized him instantly. It was Daniel, her college ex-boyfriend. I hadn't seen him in years, but there he was, laughing with my wife like no time had passed. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My hands trembled as I watched them disappear into the elevator. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront them? Should I leave? In the end, I stayed. I had to know the truth. The next morning, I returned to the hotel, determined to find out what was really going on. I waited in the lobby, pretending to read a newspaper, until I saw Lisa and Daniel emerge from the elevator. They looked relaxed, almost carefree, as if they didn't have a worry in the world. I followed them to a nearby cafe, where they sat at a corner table, their heads close together as they talked. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way they looked at each other made my blood boil. I snapped a few photos with my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. After they left, I approached the waitress and asked if she knew them. She hesitated, then said, "Oh yeah. They come here all the time. Such a cute couple." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. A cute couple? How long had this been going on? I felt like my entire world was crumbling around me. I went home that night, my mind racing. I couldn't confront Lisa yet, not without more evidence. So I started digging. I went through her phone when she was in the shower, checked her emails, and even followed her a few more times. What I discovered shocked me to my core. Lisa and Daniel weren't just having an affair, they were planning something much bigger. I found emails between them discussing a joint business venture, one that involved a lot of money and some shady characters. It seemed like Lisa was planning to leave me not just emotionally, but financially as well. She was siphoning money from our joint accounts, transferring it to an offshore account I didn't even know existed. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. The woman I'd loved and trusted for 20 years was a stranger. The more I dug, the more I uncovered. Lisa and Daniel's business venture wasn't just a side project, it was a full-blown scheme to defraud their clients. They were using Lisa's position at her company to funnel money into their own accounts, and they were planning to frame me for the entire thing. I found forged documents with my signature, emails discussing how to make it look like I was the mastermind behind the operation. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal so intense it took my breath away. How could she do this to me? To our family. I wanted to confront her, to scream and cry and demand answers, but I knew I had to be smart. If I acted too soon, she'd deny everything and I'd be left with nothing. Instead, I decided to play along. I pretended everything was normal, even as I gathered more evidence. I installed a tracking app on her phone, recorded her conversations, and even hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Daniel's background. What I found was even more shocking. Daniel wasn't just Lisa's ex, he was a convicted felon with a history of fraud and embezzlement. He'd served time in prison, and it seemed like he was back to his old tricks. But this time, he had Lisa wrapped around his finger. I didn't know whether to feel angry or sorry for her. Was she a willing participant in all of this, or was she being manipulated? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing for sure: I had to stop them before it was too late. The breaking point came a week later. Lisa told me she was going on another work trip, but this time I was ready. I followed her to a secluded cabin in the woods, where I saw her meet not just Daniel, but a group of people I didn't recognize. I hid in the trees, using my phone to record the scene. What I heard made my blood run cold. They weren't just discussing a business venture, they were planning to frame me for fraud. Lisa had been forging my signature on documents, making it look like I was the one embezzling money. If their plan succeeded, I'd be the one going to prison. While she and Daniel walked away with everything, I felt a surge of anger and betrayal so intense it took my breath away. I wanted to storm in there and confront them, but I knew I had to be smart. I needed proof, irrefutable evidence that would expose their scheme. So I waited, recording everything, until they finally left. That night, I went home and confronted Lisa. I showed her the photos, the emails, and the recordings. At first, she denied everything, but when she realized I had proof, her mask slipped. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she sneered. "But you're too late. The wheels are already in motion. By the time you figure out what's really going on, it'll be over." Her words sent a chill down my spine. What was she talking about? What else was she hiding? In the end, I went to the police. I handed over all the evidence I'd gathered, and they launched an investigation. Lisa and Daniel were arrested, along with the others involved in their scheme. The trial was long and painful, but in the end, justice was served. Lisa was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Daniel got 15. As for me, I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. I filed for divorce, sold the house, and started over in a new town. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain and betrayal felt overwhelming. But I knew I had to keep going for the sake of my kids. Looking back, I realized that the woman I married was gone long before I found out the truth. The Lisa I knew, the kind, loving, loyal woman, was just a facade. A mask she wore to hide her true self. But even though I lost her, I found something else, my own strength. I learned that I could survive even the worst betrayal, and that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest growth. As I sit here now, watching the sunset from the porch of my new home, I feel a sense of peace. The storm is over, and I'm still standing. And that's enough.